Dear students, dear colleagues, dear Vice President, Deans and Directors of Schools of Education and Teacher Education faculties across the Circle U University Alliance. Welcome to Humboldt-Universität zu Berlin. Welcome to the Senate Hall, newly refurbished and fitted with furniture to make this a particular and a splendid venue for occasions like this one. I would like to welcome you to the open conversation organized by the Teacher Education Network, a working group of the CU-TIL, the Circle U Teacher Innovation Lab. And the event today is our closing and opening event at the same time, closing of a one-year project, a seed funding project, one of the primary results of which will be our recommendations for teaching and practice internationally and through student research. We have an hour, a short hour, time flies usually, for two keynotes. One will be the presentation of the recommendations paper. The other will be a response coming from Christian Seidel from the Ministry of Education in Berlin, and a panel discussion before we close with some concluding remarks and open, hopefully, a new chapter on developing teacher education throughout Circle U. My name is Stefan Breitbach. I teach English language pedagogy at this university, and I'm part of the Teacher Education Network. And before making too many words, I would like to hand over the floor to Niels Pinkwart, Vice President of our University for Academic Affairs, to say a few opening remarks. Thank you, Niels, very much for being here and agreeing to address our audience. Thank you.
Yeah, so dear Deans and Directors, dear students, dear Circle community here in the Senate Hall of Humboldt University and also online. On behalf of Humboldt University, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this Circle U Open Conversation event, which is in fact the first of its kind in 25, not too hard to achieve in early January, one might argue, but still Happy New Year, Circle U. Open conversations are a special format designed by Circle U to give room for the discussion from various perspectives of a topical issue. They are organized, as today, by members of the Circle U community, researchers, students, and the topics are, at least that's the aspiration, of interest to the entire Circle U community. Today's open conversation is titled Perspectives on Research and Mobility in Teacher Education. It has, as has been said by Stefan Breitbach, been organized by the Circle U Teacher Education Network, a group of researchers, tutors, and students from initial teacher education at Circle U universities. For Humboldt University, and also within Circle U, where 7 out of 9 partners have teacher education programs, teacher education is of highest importance, strategic relevance, and societal contribution. This open conversation will be about the importance of high-quality teacher education within our University Alliance and how the potential of the Circle U Alliance can be mobilized to create maximum benefits for the education of our future teachers. Saying our teachers has at least a double meaning. The first is that our teachers are the students aspiring to a teaching degree at our universities. As universities, we carry a significant responsibility to make sure that these students are provided with the best possible tuition and learning opportunities to become confident, skilled, reflective, and open-minded professionals and educators. Well, why should we want this apart from general demands we place at our higher education? This certainly has to do with the second meaning of our teachers. It refers to the fact that these future teachers will teach our children. They will be educating the future global citizens of Europe. Again, universities in promoting teacher education take a share of the responsibility to ensure the future of democratic, plural, and open societies. Today, the keynote speakers and panelists will explore how some of the defining strengths of universities can form the cornerstone of high-quality teacher education. These strengths are commitment to research, open discourse, and the exchange of ideas and knowledge across borders and within the university alliances. For the last 12 months, the Circle U Teacher Education Network has worked on a set of recommendations how to implement student research activities and international collaboration and mobility within the framework of initial teacher education. They have been listening to teacher students and conducted a systematic inquiry into students' perspectives as co-researchers and on international mobility. The recommendation paper as an outcome will be presented in a keynote by Anna Ratz and Vladimir Wojnak, two student co-researchers and now members of the 10net group, whose input to the whole project has been instrumental. I'm grateful that also the Ministry of Education in Berlin agreed to provide an external perspective. Christian Seidel, who is the person responsible for the post-university phase in teacher training in Berlin, will highlight the topic of research and international experiences from a perspective which is close to the everyday business of teachers as educational professionals. This will be followed by a panel discussion moderated by Stefan Breitbach and featuring representatives from teacher education faculties and teacher education centers based at Circle U universities together with students. This panel will explore pathways for future action to promote innovation in teacher education within the Alliance so that maybe and hopefully the seed funding project is actually a seed for something to come. Concluding remarks will then come from Nevena Budovac, CU TIL Chair at Belgrade, and Christiana Richardson, CU TIL Chair at King's College London. Let me close by expressing my gratitude to the colleagues from the 10net for organizing this open conversation on behalf of Circle U. Thank you very much. Once again, welcome at Humboldt University, and I look forward to a fruitful and interesting open conversation.
So, because our time schedule is so tight, hello everyone. The two of us are student representatives of 10net Group. We worked on this research, and today we'll show you the recommendations for what we found out. This is...
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Anna Ratz, and I am studying German and English for secondary school education at Humboldt University. And I have been working on the project since this spring. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and see what our project is gonna kick off.
And my name is Vladimir Wojnak. I come from University of Belgrade. I'm fourth year of faculty of education, and that's it. Okay, so the interest and aims of this research are encasing student research and mobility in teacher education, addressing barriers and leverage opportunities for international collaboration. And regarding these two, 10net Group came with the conclusion that one of the possible outcome of this should be a course or courses aligned with Circle U core principles.
Yes. So what kind of research did we actually do? We did a qualitative study with focus group interviews with teacher education students. They were conducted this summer across the following 6 Circle U universities, and they were conducted by us and for other student researchers. Yes, so we had 11 focus groups in total. They were consisting of 2 to 6 teacher education students each. And in total, we interviewed 32 students, and they all had varying school and subject specifications. And the chart here shows the distribution for each university and participants and focus groups that we had. And Vladimir, I'm going to continue, sorry, with telling you what exactly we did with the audios that we had from the interviews. So the first step that we did was transcribing and translating the interviews into English. Then we coded them with a code-developed coding scheme. And we also did the coding collaboratively. Each interview was coded by 2 researchers, and we also discussed our diverging codings. Then we wrote summaries for each code, and by carefully analyzing these summaries, we gained insights on student needs, experiences, and challenges concerning research and mobility. So, and then what did we do with our findings? We carefully analyzed them and tried to deduce recommendations for planning and practice, which you can find in our recommendation paper, which is not yet published, but you can have a preliminary version today. Yes, and Vladimir is going to continue with the recommendations.
And the recommendations, okay. We came up with 5 recommendations. These are the 5 ones. We had so many data and so many obstacles that students explained to us, basically. So, the first one is making research engagement relevant. The key finding is that teacher education students recognized research activities as relevant for their professional learning and professional development, for personal learning. If I can say, the students came up with so many benefits for research in their studies. It was kind of hard. It was kind of hard to separate them and to fit them in one table. But we came up with basically 3 big groups that were personal benefits, professional benefits, and within professional benefits, there's concern for their future teaching beliefs, their teaching identity, and confidence they'll have. So regarding the personal benefits, it's about learning and growth and developing critical thinking while researching. Regarding professional benefits, they stated that leadership, communication, time management, and handling criticism are the fields that they feel they will benefit, and for their future teaching, it will help them basically to develop their teaching style, their teaching personality, so to say. Okay. The second recommendation is regarding multi-perspectivity and resilience. Is that the spelling? Yeah. Okay. I did it. And professional growth. So the key finding is that students highlighted the importance of professional multi-perspectivity and personal resilience gained through mobility and research. What that means is that they had pretty big number of concerns and troubles, but our recommendation for that is that you teachers, deans, students, you really have to speak with students that want to experience mobility, and they want all the information they could get with, by speaking to others. That really helps them. Also, they pointed out that they will benefit their language skills and communication and so on. So many benefits. Okay, about guidance and confidence. They were not so confident. Just kidding. What they really expressed is that they respect gradual introduction to research. They want the research to be introduced earlier, in earlier stages of their studying, possibly in bachelor studies, because they usually meet research during master studies, and they feel overwhelmed, and they want to try out during the bachelor studies. Also, they need help from you. They want your assistance and any help they could get. So our recommendation is that the institutions should provide a scaffolded introduction to research engagement with opportunities for collaboration and continuous guidance. Anna.
Yes, so the next recommendation revolves around equity, diversity, and inclusivity. And as the students have recounted, there are still various barriers that make it difficult for them to join mobility or research programs. The main area of concern really is accessibility. For example, when it comes to the process of application or funding. Another concern that was raised is also meeting deadlines for application, and that the whole application process itself is just difficult. Also, students with disabilities themselves or family or job-related obligations expressed concerns about accessibility. Another area of concern is also language, as fears of keeping up with courses taught in another language were also raised. So what do we recommend? We recommend that the application process and the funding opportunities should be more transparent and more easy. Then we also recommend that there should be a special needs support embedded throughout the whole process of application and during the projects themselves. And the staff that is going to guide students in this should also be trained accordingly. And we should also offer inclusive multilingual options beyond English when we offer such projects. Yes. And the last recommendation revolves around institutional affordances and constraints, and they apply to both mobility and research. One big thing that was criticized is the poor communication about available projects, and that the information that students can find is not really helpful to them. Beyond that, engagement seems limited to some students, as they think that it requires a certain motivation or connection to engage in such projects. Then one big institutional challenge is also accreditation and timing, as the accreditation is often intransparent or unsure, and because of the different term dates between universities or countries. So what do we recommend? We recommend to enhance communication and access for example, through centralized platforms and structured guidance. Then we should also provide a detailed and very accessible information on mobility programs and provide application support. And we should improve the whole process of credit recognition and certification. Yeah, this was it for the recommendations, and we have some final remarks.
So to summarize everything, students really seek meaningful, accessible and supported engagement in research. They have so many obstacles in that way, so support them the best you can. They really want the opportunity, they want more opportunities, and they want opportunities to be more transparent to them, more visible. Those research opportunities should be related to their future profession, as they said. Addressing these needs will create inclusive and transformative experiences, equipping educators for success. So, because our timetable is so short, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We will have time to discuss the recommendations in a bit more detail during the panel discussion. And it would not be appropriate for me to comment on the recommendations, but I would like to comment on the collaboration we had in the TNET with everybody there. Your input was so fruitful. It was instructive and educational working, not just with the group of peers that we're so used to working with, realizing again how daunting the nightmare of applying for funding can be if you're new to the business. Thank you both very much for being on this group and for working with us for such a long time during us and moving closer together. It's been a fantastic experience. Thank you very much indeed. Christian Seidel, who is on the way to his speaker's desk. I will be gone in a moment. Thank you also for agreeing to comment on the findings and on the notions and the ideas of educating teachers through international mobility and research engagement. Everything that I could say now will surely be said by you. You mentioned this, so that's why I'll be away here in just a second. Christian Seidel is, as Nils Pinkwart said, the person responsible for what we call the second phase in teacher education, which is the more practical thing, which very often students, teachers, and the general public believe to be two different affairs. That's the theoretical part of the university and the practical part, the life after university, the life of a teacher after university. I'm fairly confident that your keynote, Christian, will teach us a more integrated view of both phases. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope I can live up to these expectations. Thanks very much for that presentation. That was highly enlightening, and I'm really looking forward to the panel discussion later on to learn more about it. So good afternoon, esteemed colleagues, researchers, educators, students, and distinguished guests from abroad. I'm very grateful to Professor Breitbach for having asked me to participate in your conference on research and mobility in teacher education. It is both an honor and a privilege to be here today to discuss a topic that I believe holds great significance on a wide scale. My name has been mentioned before, Christian Seidel. I work for the Berlin Senate Department for Education, Youth and Family, and am, as has also been said, in charge of the second sort of post-university phase of teacher training. I totally agree with Professor Breitbach. It shouldn't be viewed as separate, and we're working very hard on integrating these two and, in the end, three phases of teacher education. As is not uncommon for folks like me who work in government administrations, in preparation for today, I dared to look at what our legal texts and norms concerning the second phase of teacher training had to say about mobility and research engagement. And what I came up with was basically nothing. Now, that is as much surprising as it is disappointing, but nevertheless, I would like to use the remaining 9 minutes that I was allotted to point out to you the great value we see in both aspects. But before I do that, let me give you a quick overview of our Berlin system of teacher training. In total, we have 3,000 teacher trainees here in Berlin. They take part in the so-called Vorbereitungsdienst, which literally translates as preparatory service, for 18 months. And after that, they are fully fledged teachers ready to work at our schools. And I, of course, say that in full understanding of the fact that teacher professionalization is a lifelong pursuit. The training is basically organized in 3 places of learning: the schools, subject-related seminars, and generally oriented pedagogical seminars. Once the 18 months are up, there is a state exam at the end, including 2 supervised lessons and a module examination, which I will refer back to shortly. At the center of our teacher training endeavors, we place the idea that we want our trainees to be reflective practitioners. And I firmly believe that both international mobility and a research-oriented view on pedagogical practice can significantly enhance teacher professionalization in this sense. Now, when it comes to international mobility, we have a few programs that enable teacher trainees to go abroad. As an example, I would like to focus on one project that I find particularly enriching for everyone involved. Following in the footsteps of its greater political cousin, we have called this project the Weimar Triangle. In this project, teacher trainers and trainees from France, Poland, and Berlin meet on a regular basis and exchange their views on what it means to establish a proficient and sustainable teaching practice. Our experience with this project has shown us that it is increasingly important for several reasons. For one, there's exposure to diverse educational practices. The international encounters have allowed our teacher trainees and the trainers to explore and learn from educational systems, methods, and practices from different countries. I have noticed with my own eyes how this exposure has helped them adopt a more global perspective on teaching and adapt successful strategies to their own contexts. Exposure to international trends in education challenges our teachers to think critically about their own practices and the educational system they work in. It encourages them to question conventional methods and consider new, innovative approaches that might better serve their students. I shall never forget one teacher trainee who, in an evaluation session, voiced his sudden realization that when it comes to good teaching practice, many roads lead to Rome. I'm not entirely sure if you actually say that in English, but that's how we use it in German. Yeah? Many roads lead to Rome. So anyway, it also promotes cultural competence. In today's multicultural classrooms, teachers must be able to engage with students from diverse cultural backgrounds. Internationalization in teacher training provides opportunities to understand and appreciate cultural differences, helping teachers to be more inclusive and sensitive to the needs of all students, something we explicitly want to promote from an administrational viewpoint. And it encourages global collaboration. We have found that by engaging in the Weimar Triangle project, many teacher trainees have continued to collaborate with peers from Poland and France. And this collaboration fosters the exchange of ideas, resources, and experiences, and thus enriches their professional development. Quite a few school exchanges are still ongoing with France and Poland, and this goes back to this project. Ultimately, we believe that international mobility helps teachers foster global citizenship in their students, while equipping them with the skills necessary to thrive in an interconnected world. Earlier, I spoke of the fact that we want our teachers to be reflective practitioners. That also means we want them to be research literate. The idea of research reflective teaching development is based on an understanding of the teaching profession as just that, namely a profession. I believe that alongside international mobility, research engagement is equally essential in teacher education. Teachers are not merely deliverers of content. They are also learners, researchers, and problem solvers. The more engaged they are with research, the better they can reflect on their practices and refine their methods. Engaging with research provides teachers with the evidence they need to make informed decisions about their teaching. It helps bridge the gap between theory and practice and provides a solid foundation for understanding student learning, classroom dynamics, and pedagogical effectiveness. By training teachers to be research literate, we empower them to contribute to educational innovations by investigating new methodologies and technologies, something which takes on a whole new meaning here in Berlin, where a new institute for teacher qualification has just been founded. And I was very glad to see that the new director is also present here today, Ms. Pujol. Maybe raise your hand. There she is. So that's wonderful that you're here too. In our teacher training program, we try to promote a research perspective, particularly through the previously mentioned module examination. The subject matter of the module examination should generally arise from one's own pedagogical practice and relates to the development of solutions to problem-oriented tasks using concrete examples. The module examination is research-informed, but requires a concrete connection to the practice of teaching activities. Based on a research approach, it tests above all pedagogical and didactic competence. And we find that trainees come to us, to the second phase, from the universities very well equipped and with a sound understanding of a research-based approach to practical didactic problems. We believe that a research-oriented mindset plays a crucial role in teacher training for several reasons. It improves teaching practices. By understanding what works in the classroom, teachers can adapt their practices to meet the needs of diverse learners. It informs evidence-based decisions. Teachers and educators can make informed decisions based on the latest research finding, ensuring that their teaching strategies are rooted in proven evidence-based practices rather than relying on outdated or even anecdotal approaches. It promotes reflective practice. Research encourages teachers to engage in continuous reflection about their teaching. And lastly, it fosters critical thinking. Research and teacher training encourages educators to question and critically analyze educational theories and practices. We know that teaching is a lifelong journey of learning, reflection, and growth. However, the evolving landscape of education demands more than just traditional methods. It requires us to be flexible, open-minded, and proactive in ensuring that teachers are well equipped to meet the needs of increasingly diverse and complex classrooms. Two vital aspects that contribute to this preparation are international mobility and research engagement, as both present opportunities for teacher education to adapt, improve, and flourish. Please allow me at this point to humbly make two appeals. One is directed at current students at universities studying to become teachers. Do take advantage of the opportunities that universities offer you to get to know research, do your own research, and try to gain international experience. And the other appeal is directed at the universities. Teacher training benefits when universities consciously mobilize their strengths, namely research and international exchange, in and for teaching and teacher training. At the end of the day, it's all about broadening horizons, and I sincerely hope that my short input was helpful in just that. So thank you very much for your attention.
Christian Seidel, thank you very much. The call is well noted from the side of the universities. This is an open conversation, that's what it's called. It hasn't been open, very open, since we started, but we can do better. To pursue the two key topics of today, to say that again, international mobility and experiences in teacher education and student engagement and research, we would like to install a panel. So we have a couple of chairs that need to be taken. And thank you very much to the panelists at this point for agreeing to sit in these chairs. I would like to ask my colleagues, Niels Pinkwart again, Claudia Angele, Marianne Frenet, Sarah Stedman, and Nina El Laban, to come here and make this a bit more of an open conversation than it has been so far. And ultimately, we dare to open the floor to questions and comments from the audience. Very briefly, Niels Pinkwart, Vice President of Humboldt University, you heard him before. Claudia Angele is the Deputy Director of the Zentrum für Lehrerbildung at the University of Vienna. Marianne Frenet is the Dean of the relatively recently established Faculty of Education at the Université Catholique de Louvain. Sarah Stedman is the PGC Director and English Subject Director at the School of Education at the King's College in London. And Nina El Laban in primary teacher education, but not just. We'll hear about this a bit more later at Humboldt University, and you are a participant in the Humboldt International Teacher Training Project at the Professional School of Education. Talking about internationalization teacher education, I thought it might be a good moment to ask our panelists, maybe as a first statement, to reflect on their own experiences with international mobility. We all were students once. I remember this, and I'm sure that you will remember this, maybe with mixed feelings. We learned from the recommendations that studying can be quite a taxing thing for students, obviously, that's what it's for. So please, if you can you share moments with us from your own time as a student? Was there something in your experiences abroad that has become professionally or personally significant?
I can start if you like. So let's rewind 25 years. My last year as a math and computer science student with a vision to become a teacher. And then I got a job offer for a student assistant position in a European research project. It was about distributed virtual labs in science education. It was fascinating for me. I never had a semester abroad, really. It was as regulated as it is today, hard to do that. But being in this international consortium, having meetings in Europe, learning that the French actually didn't drink wine in lunches, overworked things, but also more seriously exploring that science education is actually different across Europe. That was fascinating for me. It really shaped, I think, my career.
Hello. So as an English scholar in an English university, I had absolutely no international experience whatsoever beyond the text that I was reading. And I think that in itself is important, actually. I think we're quite insular sometimes in our courses. Later, as a researcher, though, and certainly during my doctoral training, opportunities there, I think, such as attending conferences in America, Singapore, and certainly as a teacher educator, having the space to explore different ways of preparing students to teach, different approaches, has been fascinating. And now having the opportunity to write with European colleagues as well has been really informative and sort of moved away from that kind of insular looking view that perhaps was more prevalent within universities. I think in English universities we're really good at internationalism for courses that are related to languages, and I think for others we have a lot to learn from our international colleagues.
Thank you. Yes. So being a teacher student in the 1990s at a very small university of education in southern Germany, I haven't been abroad during my teacher education studies. So the first time I gone abroad was as a PhD student in 2003, when our University of Education had an Erasmus program with Denmark. And so with my subject, it's a subject not so well known in every country. It's home economics and nutrition. And it was really eye-opening for me to be at the Dag og Aften Seminarium in Aarhus and to see how the teacher education in home economics education worked in Aarhus, and we also had insights in schools. So this was my first being abroad as a PhD student.
Yes, in my university, when I was taught in the 80s, there were no mobility program because Erasmus was not yet launched. And I really experienced my first mobility when I was a PhD student, and I had the opportunity to go to Marseille and Aix-en-Provence as Erasmus for 3 months. And my main experience was to find something quite different from Louvain-la-Neuve, even if the language was the same, but in fact it was not at all the same culture of being as a student and so, as promoters or teachers. And I was really challenged by the way the teachers and the students were interacting. It was much more formal than it was in Belgium at that time, and I was a little bit stuck by the way I would say the status of the teachers and the students were really different. And it helps me also to say, okay, what is my own experience and what I want to share with my own students. And I think that was my main. And I also, one of the it also forged some long-lasting relationship with those people in the south of France, but afterwards to other countries also. But I think it's really being able to be shocked in a way, or to interpolate by different ways was really an important part of my experience abroad.
Thank you. I would also say that I had similar advantages from my experiences abroad. Something that I often think of abroad and in Germany too is that sometimes when I say I'm going to be a primary school teacher, people tell me, "What? Why? You're overqualified." By that they mean that I have received a Master of Arts before in history, and I've had the luck of studying in 6 different countries, most recently in the USA, and right now I'm participating in a program with South African teachers. Hello to our South African visitors, scholars. And I find that a very difficult position to have, to think that this knowledge or these experiences could be wasted on primary school pupils, because I think teachers need exactly this, to be able to show their pupils, because in all the cities involved in this project, the pupils come from different cultures, maybe speak different languages, and if the teachers are able to show that they are interested in this world, that's how we ensure to make responsible citizens for tomorrow.
Now, this panel spans, I think, the whole spectrum from extra super much research experience during student years and international experience to rather little. I hope that students will find their way between those ends of the spectrum, perhaps. And Nina, you almost responded to the next question, which I'll take as a bridge. Thank you very much. Working in international multilingual classrooms with learners who bring backgrounds to the class that we can perhaps sometimes not even fathom, that we find difficult to understand. This could be everything, basically, from very, very happy experiences to tragic experiences where students, recently arrived students, bring a lot with them, maybe challenges, and also this is part of our reality as teachers. Once in the job, what do you think, panelists, please, is the perspective? Well, if you take the perspective of teacher learning, international mobility and research engagement, what is it that helps us as research experienced? Christian Seidel called this a researcher's mindset. How does this help for students to become professional teachers, professional educators? We may not discuss all the three, the A, B's, and C in depth, but maybe you pick one and comment on the qualifying element of international experience and research for teacher students.
Okay, now it works. I would like to focus on research, and I would like to refer to the talk of Christian Seidel. I appreciate it very much because you pointed out a research-driven attitude as a part of the professional competences of teachers. So, and that's what I think about too. It's very important to know about researchers working in classrooms in order to reflect on one's own educating pupils. So I think action research or lesson studies should be something every teacher, education student should know about, because it enables you for a lifelong professional reflective attitude, and this is essential to bring classroom lessons further on, to make it accessible for pupils with a lot of diverse experiences and learning ways and learning paths. And it is also a strong driving force for innovating, educating during one's biography as a teacher.
Definitely, I would agree with absolutely all of that that's just been said. Talking about internationalism, I think that's huge, actually, and really important, because it guards against that kind of isolationist view that it's quite easy to have. I think particularly when you're learning to teach, it's a very reflective profession. It's a very introspective profession in lots of ways. And those of you that are in the process of learning your craft will spend an awful lot of time analysing your own teaching. And I think international perspectives gives us an opportunity to look beyond that. I found it really interesting reading in the recommendations from the project, the interest that students have in learning about pedagogical models from different places. And that's something that I think we should actively be encouraging, and we'll talk later, I'm sure, about how we might do that. But I think there is an awful lot to be learnt from our differences, and also in exploring our differences when it comes to teaching, a lot of fundamentals that are the same regardless of where you're teaching or what language you're teaching in. And all of us are preparing teachers to work in diverse contexts. I mean, we're based in London, and classrooms in London are diverse. And our teachers, our would-be teachers, are working with students from a whole variety of backgrounds with a whole variety of experiences that they can learn from themselves as well. So yeah, I think it's just absolutely fundamental. How we do it and how we access it, of course, is a bigger matter.
Yeah, maybe to add a perspective on that. So last year's teaching award of Humboldt University was given to a course that was research-oriented and an international hybrid course. It was on European history, not a teacher education-related course, but the students highly valued that the multi-perspectivity of the perspectives they got from from the teachers, from the professors that came across Europe, and also that their classmates were an international audience that was able to discuss the issues from multiple perspectives. That was super highly valued and received the award of Humboldt University. I can certainly see that translate into teacher education, where the same things are also true, where in addition we do have the local education cultures, and we do want to prepare our students for a service in Berlin, but that does certainly not exclude having European perspectives, especially in the current political times, that's so vital to counteract like two isolated perspectives.
Yes. To continue on the research side, I think being involved in research as a student is also a way, I think, for both teacher and teacher educators to reduce the gap that can be seen between the practice and the research. And it's really important being involved in the research from the start, and even thinking about what is a research question. From my practice, what kind of research question could I ask and develop? I think it helps really to reduce that gap, and to also give the interest for knowing more and continuing to know more. And I think that's why, for me, in the idea of teacher education, it's really important to involve research as release in the start of the program, as it was one of the recommendations of the project here. It's to think that we don't need to wait until the masters to think about research. I think it's really needed to be embedded from the start. And from the side of the teacher educators themselves, I think it's really interesting to see how the students react to when we discuss and we collaborate on research. And it helps also to go back to how we think the research and how it has to be linked also to relevant practices.
Maybe to add quickly on that, I think also the fact of doing research abroad, which is a process where you actually get out of your comfort zone, forces you to live the experience very like in your flesh, in a way, in your own body. And I guess my colleagues here in the room that are also in this international research project could attest to that. It's such a formative period of time that it changes you not just in your career, but also in your personality. So yeah,
just going with the flow of the discussion, I think we skip the next question as this one perhaps links a little better with what has just been said. There seems to be obvious agreement that engaging in research for teacher education students is a good thing. As if it was nothing to say like this. We might create the impression that this has been a well-established practice ever since we do teacher education, but in fact it isn't. So I think it is interesting and worthwhile looking at the activities and the opportunities that students actually have when they come to study with us and the teacher education faculties, the schools of education at our universities. And I wonder not just what do we offer, what can we offer, how do we make it attractive? That's one thing. And perhaps to add a little twist to that, are we all convinced that university teachers themselves believe that teacher education students or teacher students should engage in research?
I can't speak for colleagues, but certainly at King's we absolutely believe that teacher education students should engage with research, and they do. One of the things that we were discussing a little bit this morning, which is slightly off the topic but related, is I think there's a lot that we do for students. I also think there's a lot that we can share as teacher educators ourselves. And that will have a benefit for our students. So when we are talking about collaborative things that we do a lot of work in England, talking to other teacher educators, but it tends to be within England or certainly within the UK. And I think within Circle U there are opportunities for us to learn from each other as teacher educators, which can then be brought back to our teacher candidates. We tend to be a little bit more mobile, perhaps, particularly if we are in intense courses. Christian was talking about the 18-month program in Berlin. In England, it's basically 9 months. It's described as a year, but the PGCE is essentially 9 months. And although it would be lovely for our candidates to come and work abroad in that time, physically it isn't possible, whereas it is possible, as demonstrated by me sitting here today, for us to do so and to be able to take things back to our colleagues. So I think, slightly off the question, but relevant, is what we can bring ourselves that we can then take back to our students.
I have to confess I was a little bit puzzled by the question at first, because across the university, I think it is, well, it's quite clear that almost everyone, I can't certainly also not speak for every single person, but engaging students in research is of vital importance. We have that in the Berlin University Alliance. We have a funding line for student research opportunities programs. And why would like a quarter of this university, which is the teacher education programs, be excluded from that claim? To the contrary, I mean, we do have opportunities for student research embedded in the curricula in many subjects, and also in this in the school placement that every student has to go through. So I think there is consensus, a broad consensus, that also in teacher education programs, and maybe specifically there, we need that.
Maybe I will add a more pessimistic view of it, not pessimistic, but I think that more neutral view, because I do think that it's really important. And then on the values, it's certainly that you need to connect research and practice, and research and teaching. But in the concrete reality of the programs, and especially in programs like teacher education, when you have people and teacher that comes from different subject fields and education and the practice field, I don't think we have this, we all view the same ways of engaging in research. For the subject teachers, they will think that what is most important is to do some research in the field of mathematics, science, or history. When you look at the educationists, they will say, no, it's important to look at the questions about what happens in the classrooms and how you think with that. When you have the practitioners that comes into the master in education and do some practice, they will say, no, research is good, it informs you, but the reality is most important. So I think that it's not a pessimistic view, but I think we need really to share and to develop some common dialogues between the different teacher educators that are not all trained as teacher educators. Most of them are trained in their own discipline or in their own practice, and so I think we need really a dialogue and a conversation to bring it together so that it's not the student that has to do all the way to integrate all those views. And I think for that, it's not pessimistic. It's more like we have pathways to go. We have quite a big challenges.
Again, we seem to span a spectrum of perspectives. Very often, my perception is that when it comes to research, we think about top-notch, cutting-edge projects in diverse fields where it's always suitable, and maybe also a requirement for funding, requirement made by funders to involve students, which is brilliant, which is okay. And we have the other end of the spectrum where the overall intake of our students across Circle U is probably a quarter of all students are in teacher education. We may need to get better equipped and better ready to provide them with research opportunities that they find professionally relevant. We had this, I think this was the first recommendation, make it relevant. And this is probably not make it relevant for another third-party funded project, make it relevant for the professionalization, for professional learning of teachers. What is the perspective which will engage me, which makes me think about my job profile, about my profession from a different perspective, perhaps with an open mind of researchers. Maybe the next open conversation, thank you for mentioning conversation. The next open conversation may, and perhaps should, have colleagues from other subjects on the panel. Time is fast. Time is running fast. Which one change would you like to see in your universities? Is there one thing that you could put your finger on, pinpoint? That's what I would like to. If I had one wish free, what would I do to better sustain opportunities for students to engage in relevant research? We also heard it from Anna and Vladimir. We need to consider the risks that entailed in research for students. What is it that we may wish to change to better enable students wanting and being able to engage in research?
I can start. It's hard to pick one, but maybe that then also connects to the list that you've presented us based on your research. I would like to strengthen what you've said and maybe connect it also to Circle U. So maybe we can use our university alliance to create international and research-oriented opportunities for students that are attractive and that are easy to locate, so that for our students it's not an administrative horror to find an opportunity for research and international exposure, but actually something that is smooth, that is within the regular lines of movement through the university, that at these places in my studies there are options that I can use, and they're super easy. I can opt for them, and maybe they are even mandatory. So using our university alliance to move in that direction, because I think that making this easy to use is probably the key thing to do, and that was very prominent in your recommendation, which I back up, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd echo that. I think from our perspective, I think the opportunities are there. I think there's lots of opportunities for research. I think there's lots of opportunities for international links. I don't think we necessarily know what everybody else is doing in the university. We sit in our own little groups, we sit in our own silos, and those conversations across departments, areas, faculties don't always happen. We've been talking this morning at a very practical level at some conversations that we want to take back about how we can break down some of those barriers for staff and make sure that everybody can support each other in bringing to light a lot of the good practice that's already there, and also how we can then further develop that both within our own institution, but also with our colleagues at Circle U as well.
Thank you. Let me focus on international student mobility once more. So if there might be one change, I had a nice talk to one of my colleagues at the international office of the Center for Teacher Education at the University of Vienna, Ingrid, and she told me that at the moment there is in our general education study program, there is a great interest in the blended intensive program of Erasmus+. So we have several of them planned for the upcoming semesters, and maybe there could be a perspective for Circle U partners as well, that we could have a look at bringing in Circle U partners in this blended intensive learning programs, because I think these programs are a good opportunity for teacher students to come in, to have access, because there are virtual elements and there are short-term going abroad short-term phases, and maybe that is something we could bring together with your activities and with your recommendations. And a last word to the recommendation paper. I think we could take this paper. You did a lot of work on these recommendations, and it was a very fine presentations from the student ambassadors as well, to go on in the discussion process within our Center for Teacher Education in order to make concrete steps or reflect or go in discussion about your recommendation. That might be a nice starting point as well.
Maybe an addition from the perspective of a student, because I would say there are definitely amazing opportunities for teacher education students. But something that is key that might be missing is time, because our programs are so full. There's barely any time to think, and I think key to make you engage with your research is having time to read about it, to think about it, and of course you can't do that if you're thinking, okay, I still need to give to hand in 5 papers at the end of the week. And yes, for example, I had to take the decision to delay my studies to be able to enjoy these opportunities. So I think the opportunities are there and they're amazing, but maybe they might need to be given more space also in the curriculum if they are to become a core part of it.
It would be really continue with your idea. I was thinking about having for the teachers and the members of the College of Education or the Faculty of Education is to really have a time slot or a space that is organized within the year, so that the people knows, okay, we have to stop and to discuss and to have those dialogue. And I would have seen the same as you, that in the program and in the program of the students also, they are so packed that it's also important to have some time and some space, so they can also enjoy that either in 1 or 2 weeks for short stays or regularly, so that it can be discussed with the students.
Thank you very much. I just remember Christian Seidel's words, please engage in research, students. This is the kind of qualification and the kind of worldview and mindset that we appreciate to have among you as future teachers. I hope that the Ministry of Education listened closely to what you just said, allow them time, and maybe within the curricula, but also to develop into research-oriented teachers. If we can work together on this goal, that would be extremely fruitful. There's time pressure on the receiving side, on the receiving end of what we do as teacher educators at the university, with so many teachers missing, and we're warmly expected to graduate from the universities. We seem to have something to negotiate here, but that is maybe not for today, but for another time. I would very much like, before coming to a conclusion, ask for questions and comments from the audience, as promised, to add another dimension of openness to this conversation. We have a wandering microphone, which will be brought to you the moment you show your hand. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. I have a comment, not a question. I'm Daria Didzinskaya, Humboldt-Universität zu Berlin, and I represent, at the moment, the new Circle U seed funding project, which is called Hybrid Circle U for Inclusion, Flexibility and Internationalization. And I would like to say thank you for this event. It was extremely interesting for me to participate. I would like to say to the students for your perspective, and I see the close connections of our two projects, because hybrid teaching offers the smooth way for the students to feel the international cooperation. And also on a bachelor level, what you said, maybe because there are not so much funding programs for this level, for the research and international cooperation, maybe the hybrid teaching could be easiest and the low-cost way to feel this international cooperation. I would be happy to cooperate with you in our project, with the TNET, also to use your project as an example for investigating hybrid teaching formats in teacher education programs. Thank you so much. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Daria.
My name is Constanza Saunders. I've been working on research-based learning and teacher education for a while, and I'm really happy to hear all these voices today, also from the Senate. Thank you for inviting us. I have one thing that I always think is important when we talk about student-based research, in teacher education. That is the idea we have about what is research. And Nils, you were saying there's opportunities in all aspects of the curriculum, and I think that's really something to follow up on, that research is not always empirical research, it's not big quantitative studies, but it can be a very, very small inquiry. Inquiry-based learning is another such concept that we can try to do as teacher educators in our classes without calling it research-based learning and having it be a big project. So I think that's something to follow up on. And also, what do students understand as what is research? That can also lower the bar a little bit and take anxieties and make it accessible. That's something that I would like to add to this conversation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we know that we don't have a lot of time, but let us just conclude this talk with a few notes. I will start by saying that from the very beginning of our collaboration within TENET, actually this idea of having teacher education more research-based was present. We started our project with the aim to explore this idea further and to promote it. And 1 year later, we are finishing the project with the same idea and even more confidence that this is not only something that is relevant for us, but that it's also possible. As you could hear from Anna and Vladimir at the beginning, through this project we actually tested this idea, and we also collected a lot of data which assured us that this is something we should focus our attention on and put our efforts to continue working on this. We really learned a lot from our teacher education students who participated in focus groups. We gained a lot of great insights, but there is one answer that really resonated with me especially, and I will just read it now. One of the teacher education students said during the focus groups, "I don't think one can become a good teacher without this research mindset." And that's actually a great point, which is formulated in a simple but really, really strong way. And I believe that it obliges us to continue this dialogue further and to advocate for having more research in teacher education. And when I say more research in teacher education, I mean more research activities as educational activities within teacher education. And listening our whole conversation today, also from this morning, but also from the open conversation, I'm really encouraged to say that this is actually our joint mission. And I believe that I share this impression also with my dear colleagues from Teacher Education Network. Thank you.
Okay, so I get the final word, or maybe not quite. So I just want to say, being involved in this Teacher Education Network research project has been absolutely amazing and enriching experience, and I think it really embodies the type of collaborative work that Circle, this kind of project within Circle U can achieve, and is very much, I see it as really kind of a first step, almost like a model for going forward. So really, really kind of inspiring to be involved in that. In terms of a couple of key points that I'd like to make emerging both from the project itself, but also from discussions today. One is more practical focused, and the other is thinking about the bigger picture of what we're doing within teacher education and teacher education, teaching's role within society, but also universities' role within society. So if we talk first of all about this first point about, I think it's become very clear throughout the project and also from today that we need, within Circle U, in order to make projects like this come to fruition, we need structures. We need structures, we heard about it in the presentation of the findings, we need structures that allow for clear communication, we need structures that allow for information sharing, we need structures, we also need a place, we need visibility, and we need centralised platforms to facilitate that. I also wanted to talk about the profession of teaching and to return to the words of Alan Newland, who's described teaching as society's most fundamental profession. And I would say that we hear you, Alan Newland, we hear you on that one. I think few would disagree. And if we think about the role of education and the potential of education for change in society, we know how important that is. We know how important teachers are. We know teachers matter. We know education matters, and we also know the role of universities, teacher education within that. We think about how universities which claim to strive to make a difference in the world. And I think that's something which teacher education needs to be placed more visibly within university settings. So we can make a difference within the education world, and I think really call for teacher education to be made more visible within university settings in order to bring about these changes. And then thank you. That is all from me for the moment.
Levina and Christina, thank you very much. It's hardly appropriate to keep talking after those words that still resonate with me, at least. So let me be brief. Thank yous to the students who participated in the interviews, who made this possible, who dedicated their time and their effort to us. They gave us a huge present in their views that we worked with, we transformed into recommendations that hopefully may be useful to everybody in teacher education in one way or another. Thank you again to Vladimir and Anna and our other student co-researchers who are not here today. Thank you to the Tenet group for wonderful collaboration. And we would be talking to ourselves if we didn't have an audience. We talked about time sensitivity. Thank you for sharing this long hour with us today. Thank you for following the invitation. Thanks for coming to this open conversation, and hopefully we'll see you again at the next opportunity and occasion. Thank you all very much indeed.